Welcome to the latest episode of the B Movie Club. I'm your host Kevin, and this week we'll be discussing the 1987 comedy classic Roxanne, starring Steve Martin, Daryl Hannah, Fred Willard, Rick Rossovich. The list goes on and on. For those of you guys joining us for the first time, the B Movie Club, it's like a book club where I'll post things online, what movie we're going to be discussing. You can watch it streaming instantly, usually on Netflix. You can post your questions and comments, favorite quotes, favorite scenes, and we'll discuss it on the show. You can go ahead on our page on YouTube, youtube.com/KD9575, the B Movie Club, and subscribe. It is free. Please tell a friend. You'll receive notifications telling you every time I've posted a new episode. Also check out our page on Facebook, the original B Movie Club. Go ahead and click that like button, and it'll let you know every time we've added a new video. But I post things on there whenever I watched a show. I'll ask for questions or comments. We'll discuss different things. You're free to post things, any movie ideas and suggestions. Please go ahead and suggest to your friends that they go ahead and like that page as well. Of course, you can reach me on Twitter at KD9575. A lot of my information is posted there as well. So, this week, Roxanne, based upon the the 18th century, 17th century play Cyrano de Bergerac about an actual historical figure who had a big nose and helped helped a friend woo a lady who he was secretly in love with, and all that good stuff. The movie is essentially about, the main character is the fire chief of a small northwestern town called Nelson, played by Steve Martin, named CD, who has a big nose, comically big. Like, is that about here? Well respected. He's kind of a badass. They show him like beating up two guys who made the mistake of commenting on his nose, like in the first 5 minutes of the movie. He meets a new girl in town. She's an astronomer, a rocket scientist, astrophysicist, all sorts of stuff. Played by Daryl Hannah. That's Roxanne. She's smart. She's cultured. She's beautiful. She has a lot of things going on. And CD is drawn to her for all these reasons, but he has such low self-esteem because of his crazy nose that even though he's very eloquent and also worldly and cultured, he doesn't feel confident enough to pursue her. Enter Chris, played by Rick Rossovich. You might remember from Top Gun. He comes into town. He's tall, good-looking, he's in shape. He's joining the fire department from out of town. And all the ladies in town are all go gaga over him, and Roxanne notices him. Now, sadly, poor Chris suffers from some sort of social anxiety disorder, where every time he looks at a girl, he has to run off and puke in an alley. It's very upsetting. There's kind of a love connection from across the room. Chris is interested in Roxanne's interested in Chris, but they can't talk because Chris can't even talk to a girl. So CD, who although is secretly in love with Roxanne, agrees to help Chris because Roxanne confided into CD that she likes Chris as well. So he agrees to write letters for Chris that are very eloquent and beautiful and poetic to woo Roxanne. It even goes so far that CD goes on the first date with Chris, like at first hiding in a van with microphone and kind of saying what he should say to Chris, because again Chris cannot put one word in front of the other around women. It's very disturbing. Eventually he succeeds in wooing Roxanne. One thing leads to another, but now they're hooking up, but now CD has to continue the ruse of writing letters and secretly being in love. And I don't want to give everything away, but it all works out in the end. You'll just have to wait and see. Some things about this movie. Like I said, it is based upon the original play, Cyrano de Bergerac. Hence why Steve Martin's character is CD, although everybody calls him Charlie. And a lot of the scenes and some of the lines are taken directly from the original play. Without giving too much away, I know some people were going to rush out and watch the original play of Cyrano de Bergerac. Basically, what occurs in that show is, over the course of many years, he helps Christian woo Roxanne, and then Christian dies in a battle. And CD, wanted to tell the truth, and Christian actually told him to tell the truth. But he didn't want to ruin Roxanne's illusion of Chris. So it isn't until years later, when Cyrano is dying, that Roxanne begins to figure out the truth. And it's very sad and depressing. The movie is not sad and depressing. The movie is kind of wacky and zany. In fact, it's Steve Martin. I mean, if you've seen The Jerk, if you've seen The Man with Two Brains, any of these other films that he did prior to this, it has that Steve Martin wackiness. However, it has that solid foundation of an actual honest-to-goodness plot, okay, where it dealt with real emotions. And Steve Martin always appreciated this film as being the first one where people appreciated him as kind of an actor, rather than just that comedian who happens to be in a movie. And like I said, he has this comically, ridiculously big nose in the course of the movie, but where it's distracting early on, you very quickly get used to it. You know what I mean? He just happens to have this nose, and it's the willing suspension of disbelief. What can I tell you? Some people who were in this movie you may not remember. Kevin Nealon from Saturday Night Live. This is one of his first things. He's like in the opening scene of this movie. Damon Wayans has a very small role in this. You see him popping up as one of the firefighters. Like I said, Fred Willard is in this. Rick Rossovich. At one point, we find out that Roxanne's last name is Kowalski. So when Steve Martin's talking to Rick Rossovich, Chris, about Roxanne, he's like, her name's Roxanne, I don't know, something like Kazansky. Kazansky was actually Iceman's real last name in Top Gun, so there's that weird Top Gun connection. What can I tell you? Whenever Steve Martin would go around, he'd have the fake nose on, and people passing him on the street would be like, hey, nice nose, nice nose. And one day he was going out for lunch or whatever, and he saw a bunch of bikers walking by, so he was kind of gearing himself up for, the taunting that he would take. And one of the bikers looked at him and said, why the long face? And Steve Martin thought it was the funniest thing he'd ever heard. Very clever, I guess, for your usual gang of bikers. The movie's actually filmed in a town called Nelson, which is in Canada. I believe it's in British Columbia. And the movie actually took place in Nelson. So there you go. It's important to know this. Like I said, some of the funniest scenes are the Chris character being ridiculous. I mean, he needed to be on like Zoloft or something, some social anxiety medication, because some of the most painful scenes of this movie are, it's like he walks into the cafe, he sees Roxanne, they kind of lock eyes, and then he uncomfortably slinks away, runs to the bathroom, throws up at an alley, climbs out the window, like very uncomfortable things happen. So there you go. Like I said, this is one of Steve Martin's, up to this point it was all kind of wacky, zany, but also a little more adult. It was things that, let me tell you a story. Growing up, we had HBO. It was one of the first, we had cable. It was a big deal. And one of the shows that was big at that time was The Jerk. So I went around as a young, however old I was, 5 or 6, 7-year-old, quoting The Jerk. That's great until the local clergy comes over and I happen to quote some of my favorite scenes to them. Didn't go over quite so well. Needless to say, HBO was soon out of the house. But by the late 80s, now he's doing Roxanne, which is more family friendly. Goes on to do like Parenthood, things like that. Really good movies, but a little bit more. They had serious aspects to it rather than just kind of the zaniness of The Jerk. Although, don't get me wrong, I still love The Jerk. And I still quote it all the time. Other things you might know, later in this movie, Roxanne actually punches Steve Martin in his fake-o nose. And you see him kind of holding onto his nose. She actually dislodged his nose. So he's actually kind of holding it on at that point. So, good times. If you have not seen it, I highly recommend it. Unlike many of the movies we discussed, this you could watch with a family. Maybe not your family, maybe a neighbor's family. I don't know. Find a family, sit them down. You can all watch it together. It's good for everybody. Let's just say that. It is currently ranked 88% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. I know Roger Ebert at the time when this movie came out gave it thumbs up or whatever he does. Discussing about how it has that real serious plot, which again, a lot of the lines, such as "You love little birdies so much to give this to perch on," that's directly from the original play, lamenting about how you were on time, Mr. Johnson, but your nose was on time, Mr. Johnson, but the rest of you was 15 minutes late. In the play, there's actually a line talking about he was lamenting that his nose arrives 15 minutes before he gets there. So there you go. Took a basic plot from the play, took a lot of the lines from the play. But the screenplay was actually written by Steve Martin as well. So there you go. Steve Martin obviously went on to write a lot of screenplays after this. Most of the movies he's been in, from his earliest work, he wrote the screenplays as well. So there you go. Roger Ebert, like I was saying before, gave it thumbs up, talking about how the plot was serious. The more dramatic scenes were very dramatic, but it also had that kind of trademark Steve Martin wackiness. So there you go. Again, it is streaming instantly on Netflix. Check it out. Tell a friend. Next week, after a lot of discussion, I'm going back to the horror genre. As always, I post on Facebook and ask for suggestions. We're going to be doing Lost Boys, starring the Coreys, the late great Corey Haim, and the not so late and not so great, in my opinion, Corey Feldman, and also Jason Patric, Jamie Gertz, Kiefer Sutherland, Diane Wiest. It's an all-star cast. It is streaming instantly on Netflix, so go check that out. Send me your questions and comments. Again, you can reach me on Facebook, on Twitter. You can go to our page on YouTube and post there. Please do. Please subscribe if you have not already done so. Tell everyone you know to do the same. Spread the word, ladies and gentlemen. As you know, I end every episode with a totally out of context quote. And here it is. I'd rather be with the people of this town than with the finest people of the world. There you go. I could have gone with, but I'm afraid of worms, Roxanne, worms. Or, we can't have people whose houses are burning down and say, whatever we do, don't call the fire department. That would be bad. So there's a lot of choices. Anyway, thank you for joining us. As I said, next week we'll be doing The Lost Boys. Be well.